really come together as a community and decide what we wanted this community to look like. I did not want to allow anymore the ability for folks who were from outside this community to dictate to us what our community should look like. I wanted us to kind of grab the reins of our own destiny and start this process of planning. And part of that has been some of the work we're doing with FIU, and Elisa's here, and her team have been doing a wonderful job, and hopefully we'll finish raising the private dollars to get that going. And that should probably be done, and I promise I'll get you that money within 60 days, the little part that's left. So we'll get that done. But the other part that was very important, I mean, you know, all of us who live out here in the West End know that Kendall Drive is really kind of the backbone, the main artery of this community. And we wanted to start off that whole planning process with what this stretch of road, which is really important because it connects a major artery out here, a major north-south artery, which is 137th with Chrome Avenue, and what will be happening to Chrome in the future. And I think Chrome is going to be an incredibly interesting road. It'll be a road where I think development will end, but it'll also be a road that'll be half rural, but also help to alleviate a lot of the issues that we have out here. So I wanted to make sure that that stretch of land, you know, was where we started, creating a vision and what we would like to see in the future. You know, bear in mind that this is obviously a vision. It will not look like this 100%, but at least it gives us a guidepost for what we could shoot for. You know, folks will have an idea of what we want, of what we like to see. And then this could take, you know, 10, it could take 20, it could take 30 years. But I thought it was very important because it starts to communicate to folks outside of this community what we want to see and what we expect from the folks who wish to bring their businesses and their developments to. So I want to thank you all again who participated. I thought that event that we had there at Varela High School was a wonderful event. I'm sorry I had to leave to go coach my little soccer team, but I saw the pictures and I was jealous. I heard the presentations were great, and the superstars were the young kids, which was great to hear. And I also want to thank the county staff, Jess and Eric and everybody from the county's put in an awful lot of work. Them and their teams have put in a lot of work. I've been very tough on them, and I want you to be tough on them. And I want this to be something that we could all be proud of. And it's a work in progress. This whole community and what we do in the future is a work in progress. So keep all those things in mind. But more than anything, I'm very proud of what you have been able to achieve. And I'm just honored to have been a part of it. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the labor of the product of your labor. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zapata. And thank you all for coming. We really appreciate you taking your time again to join us tonight. And as you know, most of you probably participated in at least a few of the meetings prior to this one, starting last year with this process. And so what we've been working on since the March event was refining the ideas that were expressed by the community and trying to come up with a framework of how to move forward to try and visualize the future of West Kendall. So what we're going to do, we're just going to briefly discuss the study area, just to review, to go through briefly the ideas that were presented by you and the community in March at Varela Senior High School that Saturday morning. And then we'll go through the recommendations that we've been working on in the last couple of months, and then just look at the next steps for the future of this planning process. Just to review, the study area that we've been looking at is from 137th Avenue to Chrome Avenue along Kendall, roughly a half mile north and south. And there's an aerial view. You can see the urban development boundary. It's at 167th Avenue, and then it goes west a little bit to 172nd Avenue, and then back down, and it kind of zigzags down. And this is Chrome Avenue on the west. So our western boundary for the study area was Chrome Avenue. And this is the March 1st workshop. We had a very good participation and a lot of great ideas. The way these workshops work is we do a little introduction presentation and explain the process, and then ask you to get into groups and start drawing your ideas for the future of the area onto what we call citizens plans. And again, this is where we base our recommendations from, are the ideas that were expressed on that Saturday. And again, we had good participation, including the kids had lots of good ideas. So these are some of one of the main purposes of these workshops is to kind of try and develop a consensus. And in this case, these are the primary consensus elements or ideas. And we have mixed uses, the desire for a civic center, desire for more employment areas, so West Kendall is not such a bedroom community, have a place for farmers markets, additional open spaces, parks, and things like that. Pedestrian and bicycle facilities and connections between parks and other open spaces and shopping areas, so people can walk, use the bicycles in a pleasant manner, and then improve transit service. And then again, just reviewing the actual citizens' plans, you can kind of get an idea of the drawings that were developed and some of the ideas. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but again, the consensus was mainly those 6 or 7 ideas. You can see the town center. The town center at the next to the Baptist Hospital was an area that most people were very, very interested in and really wanted to see that develop into a town center. And then mixed-use development along Kendall Drive, to allow people to live and work within proximity to each other so they don't have to get in their car and drive for an hour to downtown or to Doral or to the airport area and so on. More trees, landscaping, more shade. That was something else that was critical because, if you want to walk and you're in the sun, there's no shade. It's just not a pleasant experience. And everybody knows that, and that's something we have to work on. And then additional transit service, possibly a local circulator trolley, express buses. People like the Kendall Cruiser, but it's stuck in traffic with everybody else. So that's a problem. And how do you solve that? And we have some ideas. Mixed uses, more amenities, better retail options. That was also desired. A hotel, 1 or more hotels. People want to be able to live and play in Kendall without having to go to Coral Gables or to South Miami or to the beach, so they can enjoy their community. Of course, it's great to have the beach, but it's a hike from here, and so it's nice to be able to, enjoy your community on the weekends without feeling a need to, drive for a half an hour or more. And this was the kids' map. So you can see I think we had some future artists there. And again, you can kind of see the ideas, the trolley, circulator service, farmers market out there in the UDB area, or the expansion area and so on. And what's interesting is if you go back to our first meeting, which I think was last October, when we were first beginning the process, we kind of laid out a few goals of what we were hoping to achieve, and these were the initial goals, and you can kind of see how they align with the consensus elements that were developed, during the workshop. So I think we're going in the right direction, but we're going to have to, you're going to have to tell us at the end of the presentation. And hopefully, we'll be able to have this on the internet. You can download it. And if you have additional comments, you can let us know. So if we're going in the right direction, you can let us know. If we need to work on things, we didn't get things quite right, you can tell us that as well, and we'll keep working. So anyway, going into the actual planning, we have to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And you can see this is the land use plan map, which is just a part of the overall comprehensive plan. You can see the urban development boundary again at 167th Avenue and the expansion area, and then the various land use categories. Now, one of the important things that we have along Kendall are these 2 urban centers. One of them located at 137th Avenue and one at the 162nd, where the Kendall Town Center is located, and the Baptist Hospital. The good thing about the urban centers is that they allow a lot of things that you told us you'd like to see, which is mixed uses, pedestrian scale type buildings, and things like that. So, we have some planning tools that we can work with that will help achieve what you told us you want to see. we'll go through the various sections here. The first one is redevelopment. I'm sorry the map is not that great on the projector, but there's not a whole lot of redevelopment opportunity in Kendall because a lot of things are pretty new here. One exception is the Kendall Lakes Shopping Center at 137th Avenue. I don't know, any old timers remember when it looked like that?
I do.
If you look at the map, that's actually the old Wilmeco Movies was right in the middle there.
It's a lot better than what's there now.
So, yeah, I mean, well, this is what we got now. The mall kind of disappeared, and now it just became a typical strip mall. And, you told us that most people are not very pleased with the way it looks and functions right now. So, looking at the redevelopment opportunity here, there's a large parking lot, and it's probably underutilized. And so, the parking area could be infilled with buildings to try and create a more urban scale along Kendall Drive. Over time, additional buildings could be added, and a kind of pedestrian scale street could be created along the existing strip shopping center, where the parking areas are within actual building blocks. So you have a block system developed over time. And maybe in the future, the additional smaller scale retail type uses could be placed in front of the big box retail stores, which really don't have blank walls along their, except for the doorways. And then, over the long term, even parking garages could be constructed to allow for sufficient parking, but a much higher utilization of the land. And then looking to the north, there's the existing mini storage warehouses, and you've probably seen the trend in the mini storage industry is that they're going multi-level, and so these are one-story mini storage buildings, and if they could be put into a multi-level type building, then there we go. Possibly the north half of the shopping center could be redeveloped to something that would be compatible with the residential areas north of, is this 82nd Street?
84th.
84th. And so the people who live up in Kendall Lakes here could actually walk, down a pleasant street scale environment here into a small scale town center type environment. And again, so this is a concept. But this is consistent with the fact that this is an urban center. So this type of development will be permitted, by our comprehensive plan right now. I just need somebody to come along with the vision to do it. So that's always the challenge. So anyway, this is about 45 acres, and potentially you could have almost 1 million square feet of office space, 620,000 square feet of retail. There's about 400,000 square feet of retail space there now. Maybe about 600 units of residential, more or less. This is just an estimation of what could be built there. And even though, remember, you got 45 acres, it's only 15 units an acre at 680 units, and that's about similar to the other apartment developments that are surrounding the area. So anyway, that's one look at what could be done in terms of redevelopment. And for policies, we have the policies in place through the comprehensive plan. And these properties that are located within the urban centers should be developed with the urban center standards. And mixed uses should be encouraged, and pedestrian connectivity should be required, as things redevelop, so people can walk to their shopping areas and so on. The next group of recommendation are street improvements. And there's a lot of discussion about, again, the shade and people want to walk, but the streets are not comfortable enough right now. And so this is one example. This was actually an item that was brought to our attention. The fact that along 152nd Avenue between Kendall and 80th Street, there's people parking along the swales, and so the swales get torn up, and they just turn into a dirt and rocks, and it's very unpleasant. And so if people are parking on the swales, you should have on-street parking. And you have something that looks very unpleasant and disorderly, you add a curb and gutter and some little bump outs for trees in the parking lane, and you get a streetscape that's attractive, and yet still allows people to park, because obviously there's a need for parking in the right of way. And the other good thing about the on-street parking is that when you're a pedestrian on the sidewalk, and you have the stationary cars, you're buffered from the traffic. So it's a much more comfortable environment to be a pedestrian. Of course, the additional shade helps as well. This is another issue that was brought to our attention, 149th Avenue, south of Kendall, adjoining the Presidente supermarket.
Okay.
And again, you have parking in the right-of-way. And when you don't have curb and gutter, the parking goes in the swale. The swale gets torn up, and it looks very unpleasant. So again, adding the curb and gutter will keep people from parking on the swale. Having a dedicated parking area will keep the swales from turning into dust and mud pits. I'm looking for the word and I can't think of it. Potholes. And so additional shade, you get a much nicer environment, a streetscape that's pleasant and people are pleased with. One of the other things that we were looking at are the fact that a lot of the half-section roadways, like 80th Street, 152nd, 162nd, 96th Street, these half-section roads are typically 70 feet of right-of-way, and there's no landscaping. You have sidewalk, a curb and gutter, and then just 4 lanes of traffic and a painted median, and no landscaping. And they're not, it's not an attractive streetscape, unfortunately. One of the things that was interesting is if we look at the long-range transportation plan, which is coordinated by the MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization, they have in the long-range plan, they have a map that illustrates the level of service out to 2035, which is the horizon for the current long-range plan. And you see all these green roadways. Those are roadways that have a level of service of A or B, which means essentially that they're uncongested. In 2035, they're uncongested. So even with the projected development that's going to occur out to 2035, these roadways are still projected to be at level of service A or B. So what that means to us is that if you have 4 lanes right now, and in 2035 it's level of service A or B, that means you really probably don't need all 4 lanes of traffic. So if you don't need all 4 lanes of traffic, what can you do? Well, you can take that 10 feet on either side and add a landscape strip and a bike lane, and possibly take those painted medians and landscape the medians, and you suddenly have a streetscape environment that people would be willing to use and ride their bike on. Of course, the challenge is, again, you have existing infrastructure. A lot of these roads, they were paid for by developers. The county didn't pay for those roadways. So how do you go back and retrofit them, as we're showing here? That's the real challenge. The challenge is not the technical configuration of the roadway, because there's enough right-of-way. How do you go back and fix, what people are not happy with? Another option is, instead of the bike lane, to potentially have a 10-foot sidewalk, which is wide enough for a shared bicycle pedestrian facility. Because a lot of people told us that they weren't happy with the bike lanes. They don't like sharing the roadway with the cars. People drive too fast and so on. So that's another option. It's possible within that 70-foot right-of-way if you don't actually need the 4 lanes of traffic. One of the things is that really the congestion is really only at the intersections. So you may not be able to do this when you get close to Kendall Drive. You may actually need all 4 lanes. But when you get 500 feet away from the intersection, you can actually start to do something like this. So in terms of policy recommendations, we should conduct some traffic studies and look at what roadways have extra capacity. Even out to 2035, we don't need all 4 lanes, at least for some segments, and begin to look at adding bike lanes and landscape strips and so on. And again, sidewalks, when you're doing a new roadway, sidewalks should be buffered from travel lanes. You shouldn't have sidewalks right up against the curb. It's just unpleasant. People don't like to walk on those types of sidewalks. And finally, on-street parking should be provided where you have a commercial and multifamily development, because that's what we've seen the problem of people parking on the swales and tearing up the swales and it being unattractive. Okay, for new development, within the urban development boundary, there's not a whole lot of opportunity for new development. It's mainly where the town center is, and then right out here at 172nd Avenue and Kendall. And adjoining, this is the town center. This was the last site plan that was approved. I think it was in 2003. It was for a large kind of lifestyle shopping center surrounded by surface parking lots. Of course, you know the Baptist Hospital has been built. The assisted living is under construction right now. And of course, the lakes and so on are already there. So we were looking at coming up with a concept to illustrate both the urban center standards, because again, this is in an urban center, and the concepts that you told us that you'd like to see. And beginning with the existing roadway network, this is Kendall, this is 96th Street, this is 162nd Avenue. I forget the number here, 159th or something. But anyway, looking at the existing development that's already built, the hospital is already here. They own this vacant piece of property here. This is the assisted living that's under construction. And then there's the transit terminal. The first thing we looked at was developing a block system, because that's important for pedestrians. People are comfortable walking when they know the block sizes and so on. And then looking at different uses that could fit into these blocks. One of the important things that people told us was additional retail, the movie theaters. That's something everybody wanted to see, was additional movie theaters in the area. And then having mixed uses. So uses such as residential, mixed-use residential and retail, or residential and office-type buildings. So people, again, can live and work in close proximity, and also to the entertainment and the retail and the restaurants that would be located here. And then you can see the open space, some additional open spaces that are possible, so people can enjoy, not necessarily come to shop, just enjoy the quality open space. And so this is the, this is the concept that we came up with. And this is Kendall here. So this is looking to the northwest. This is the existing Baptist Hospital, the assisted living building that's under construction. And so you can see the kind of retail complex here with the block system kind of oriented towards Kendall. And then a significant open space. It could be used for different, community events and farmers markets and so on. And then some more retail and these mixed-use type buildings that could contain office space, residential space, retail space, and so on. And again, this is all within a block system that really encourages people to walk around and enjoy the environment, and so on. And then on the west side of 162nd, some additional office space. There's a transit terminal. We're depicting a parking garage. If the transit use goes up, we may need to have a garage for additional cars to park at the transit terminal. And then a hotel, because a hotel was something that everybody told us, or a lot of people told us was really important out here. And so we have some additional images to kind of illustrate this idea. This is the movie theater here facing Kendall. This could be a future office building and civic space, government offices and so on. And again, you can see the open spaces to kind of connect the whole property together. And there's that open space again, kind of between the retail on Kendall and the mixed-use spaces to the south. So anyway, you get the idea. There's an image of what the theaters could look like, hopefully, at night. Everybody coming and going, enjoying the environment. So of course, here's what it looks like today. You can see the Baptist Hospital in the distance. This is Kendall looking west. In the future, some additional development. Maybe that's the streetscape that you can see along Kendall. Well, palm trees are just for illustration. If you do shade trees, they hide everything else. But anyway, one of the important things here, again, when you have sidewalks along Kendall, and the traffic is going 50 or 60 miles an hour, nobody really wants to walk along that. So it's important that the sidewalks be separated from the travel lanes as much as possible, and with shade and so on. This is the existing traffic circle along 162nd Avenue. And again, so with some additional development, that's what it could look like. This is the entrance, 162nd at Standing and Kendall Drive, and maybe improving that little that grade a little bit with the landscape trellis or something like that, so you have some shade as you're walking in. This is an approved development of regional impact. So what that means is that they have a development program that they're kind of fixed with. To do what we're showing, that would have to be modified by the Board of County Commissioners. But it is a designated community center, so our comp plan actually supports the scale of development that's being illustrated here. And so what we're showing is about 1 million square feet of commercial area, either retail, office, movie theaters, restaurants, and so on. 1,700 units of multifamily, which works out to about 20 units an acre, which is again about, not much higher than the surrounding multifamily development. And then 24 acres of open space, which is about 30%, which is a lot. So again, this is just a planning concept. We can't tie anybody to doing what we're showing here, but it is a concept that we think the community would support, hopefully, in the future. Can we wait until the end?
Sure.
You'll be first as soon as we're done. And we're almost there, so we're going to have a lot of time for your comments. So anyway, for new development, again, future development should be consistent with the urban centers, at least in these areas that are within the urban center circles. Mixed uses should be encouraged, and again, the pedestrian connectivity is very important. Okay, looking at transit, the potential for future transit. This is the existing park and ride at the church. This is at Hammocks Boulevard right here. And yes, the Target is right here. And one of the problems with this park and ride is that people don't like to use it because going east in the morning, you have to cross Kendall. And nobody wants to do that. So transit actually, I think, is working on acquiring some property to actually have a bus turnaround here, so the buses can come in, do their drop off, and go back out, so people who are parking in the park and ride don't actually have to cross Kendall to either enter or leave the bus.
And let me interrupt you. Just for a second, think about when I talk about that the county doesn't really think about planning. So we all know that in the morning we all go east, right? So if we're all going to do a park and ride, what you probably want to do is put it on the south side of Kendall.
Yes.
Because that's where the east traffic goes. Where did the county put it?
No.
In the north side. So basically, you have to go north to then go west to then make a U-turn to go east. So somebody in transit was not planning. They just did it just to do it, and that was where there was a piece of open space, and they threw it in there. It wasn't these guys, but him. He gave me this presentation, so I always tell folks, it's the county. They may have the good intentions, but they're not the ones who are sitting there really thinking about how things operate. Because when I saw that, I go, that makes no sense at all. Why would you put it in the wrong side? Because it makes sense when you're coming back, you're coming west, so then it makes sense to be in the north side. So just a little example of what happens in the county and how they go about planning. So again, he wasn't responsible. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, because I know he gets a little nervous because you're going to take me out here in the parking lot.
I'll take the blame for transit anyways. It's okay. But anyway, so if we have a parking lot, that's fine and well. It's a parking lot is still a parking lot. It's not really much of a community amenity except as a destination for people who are getting the bus. One of the other things is looking at future development on the church. I think they told us they wanted a larger sanctuary, and so we're trying to illustrate both the park and ride and how it could be compatible with additional construction on the church property. And then if a parking garage is constructed, it could actually fit there in the same area and provide a lot more spaces for people. And hopefully with some additional development, some retail spaces, convenience retail for people who are coming and going from the bus, to be able to stop and pick up whatever they need or get a coffee or whatever it might be. Now, as far as the actual bus service itself on Kendall, as I mentioned earlier, the Kendall Cruiser is great, but it's stuck in traffic with everyone else. And so we looked back a few years, and the MPO did a study looking at Kendall Drive, what the potential is for some enhancement, mobility enhancement. That was the goal of the study. And they had several different alternatives for modifying Kendall, but there was only one alternative that actually had dedicated bus lanes, which would mean the bus would be able to go faster than the remainder of the traffic. However, what they didn't go into detail on is what would happen at the major intersections where you have to have left turns. Are the turns shared with the bus lanes? It wasn't explained. So we wanted to take a look and see what would happen if we could try and solve that situation. And the right-of-way is constrained. You really can't expand the right-of-way without spending an extraordinary amount of money to buy additional right-of-way, tear apartment buildings down, shopping centers down, whatever, for additional right-of-way for additional surface lanes. So what's the answer? You go up in the air. And so this is what we came up with.
Great idea.
Okay, great idea. So again, it's an option.
Listen, people want bus rapid. That's the option.
This is bus rapid transit, and this has been done around the world.
Yeah, it sounds the same. It's been done in other countries.
And
we need some landscaping though. Yeah. Little landscaping.
We'll paint it green.
Little green in the summer.
So what would happen is that at the intersections, you would actually have to lift those dedicated lanes above the intersection, so people can continue to make left turns, because otherwise you're cutting off really accessibility throughout the whole area. So essentially the operation of the intersections would be unchanged, and in between the intersections the bus could be at grade level. And so this is kind of a view of what that could look like. This is looking east toward 137th Avenue with those dedicated bus lanes down where the median would be. And here's another view. This is 100 looking west at 137th Avenue along Kendall. And that would be the actual bus station. So again, it's a concept. Whether it's realistic or not, that's a good question. That's for transit to figure out. But again, this would do a lot to allow people to travel on Kendall much faster than you can today. Let's see, our next recommendation for transportation. I'm sorry, we're at long-term development. So long-term development essentially is out here in the urban expansion area. And we had some suggestions from people what they wanted to see, for future development, mixed uses, more open spaces, workspaces, light industrial or flex space, things like that. Again, so Kendall isn't an exclusively bedroom community, so people can live here and work without having to travel extraordinary distances in a lot of traffic. So we wanted to look at this area. Again, it's in the expansion area. We don't necessarily advocate to move the UDB, but within the expansion area, the comp plan anticipates that the UDB line will move in this area by 2030. That's how the policies are written. And again, this is I think this is 107th Avenue looking west. There's Chrome Avenue out there. So this is the UDB line now, and so we're looking, what could happen in the future. Again, this is the expansion area boundary at Chrome Avenue. This is the current UDB now.
Show them where my office is at.
And yes, the commissioner's office is right here. What is this, 165th?
That's one. No, yeah, that's 165th, I guess.
Yeah.
That's 167th.
So anyway, this is the comp plan. This is what it has to say about the UDB, and it says that it's likely that after 2020, we're going to need to expand the UDB to allow for future development because we're not going to have any land left. Now, that may or may not be true, depending on the patterns of development within the urban area. But again, it's likely. So if the comp plan is saying it's likely, we should probably try and plan for the future whether or not expansion is actually warranted. So don't take this as a recommendation to move the UDB. That's not what we're saying here. We're just saying that we should look at the area, try and anticipate the future needs for the area. So similar to what we were looking at in the other examples, one of the most important things is to develop a block system, because that's one of the things that you told us. There's no connectivity. Our developments are all isolated and disjointed, and we can't walk anywhere because nothing is connected. So, although this area it's owned by different property owners, that doesn't mean that development can't occur in a coordinated fashion. So that a block system can be developed in a rational manner. So there is connectivity between the development that might occur in the future, and again, might occur in the future in this area. And one of the other things that everybody wanted to see was additional open space. And as you know, with the existing lakes, we have to retain the water. So lakes are going to be an important element of anything that goes on out here if development does occur. But rather than having these isolated things that don't really relate to anything else, we should try and relearn from the past and look at the hammocks, which has this wonderful, actually right behind us, this wonderful pedestrian system that connects all the lakes together. So that should be actually brought back into fashion and implemented. And again, of course, we have this is a 40-acre park here with sports fields and open spaces and so on, connected with this pedestrian network. One of the other things that should be implemented if development occurs out here is a green belt along Kendall, similar to the rendering along Kendall with the bike path, pedestrian path separated from the roadway. Something similar should be done here along Kendall to allow people to use, to travel along Kendall as a pedestrian or a bicyclist, separated from the traffic. And then looking at the future for development, these could be varieties of things. The colors, aren't really that important, but potentially on Kendall you have mixed use, office spaces, retail spaces, residential, possibly some apartments mixed with live-work type spaces here, and maybe some flex type light warehousing space to provide for employment opportunities. And again, this is such a long time. Well, actually, it's not that long. 2020, it's only 6 years from now. But again, the important thing to take away from this is not the specific uses, or the actual configuration, but the elements of the blocks and the open spaces, and how they can form a development pattern that is rational and just works better than what we've seen in the past, in the recent past, up until now. So that's something that we should work on as in terms of policy. And this is a view looking along Kendall. This is Chrome in the foreground, looking to the east. I think that's actually downtown Kendall, far in the distance there. So is this the future? Maybe, maybe not. But it's something to think about for the expansion area. And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this. Again, if you attended, I think it was the last meeting that we had in this room. We had a presentation from the Expressway Authority. They're going to be studying the potential for an expressway connecting to Kendall, extending the 836 expressway to Kendall, the Kendall area. So this is just an idea of if Chrome becomes an expressway, what an interchange at Kendall could look like. So again, don't take it too literal. It's just an idea. But again, we have office spaces here, some of this mixed-use type development, some flex space, light warehousing, and so on. All mixed in with the open spaces, the lakes, and these bicycle pedestrian paths connecting the area together. And again, so for policy recommendations for us, the CDMP doesn't really have anything specific about the future development in the expansion area. So something we should consider is including something in the comprehensive plan that talks about the character of development, what should happen, if development will occur in the expansion area, such as an open grid of streets, connected open spaces, and waterways, and buildings that contribute to an urban scale, pedestrian scale environment. Mixed uses should be encouraged, and pedestrian connectivity, again, is very important. Now, for the next steps. That concludes our recommendations. The next steps is we need to hear from you. You need to tell us if we're going in the right direction. If we missed anything important, something that we looked at that you don't agree with should be left out. We need to hear from you. So once we determine that you're pleased with our recommendations, we'll develop our plan report, which will go to the Planning Advisory Board and then on to the Board of County Commissioners. So that concludes our presentation, and I'm waiting to hear from you. And as I promised, the nice lady in the front here.
Well, I'm glad you decided I'm a nice lady. You may not like me after my comments. One of the things that, if I'm not mistaken, we talked about that Saturday at Varela, because that was the only meeting I was able to attend, was we talked about having community gardens, something for the children in particular to participate in. We talked about having nature spaces where wild animals and paths where children could observe nature. I didn't see anything like that there. Huh? I don't know, the last picture he showed off a chrome showed buildings. There was no nature. The building is not nature. It's beautiful, but it's not nature. I want to see farms. I want to see like nature paths, like if you're walking through the Everglades kind of nature paths. I want animals to be able, wild animals to be able to live and exist. I mean, I'm having trouble with the duckies that are the little babies that people are speeding around because, you know, God forbid there's a ducky and they have to wait 2 seconds with their automobiles. Okay, another thing I wanted to mention, and I've seen this in several articles and it's something I would like you to look into. I would like to see all lighting be solar. I don't want to see anything that's run by electricity. I would like to see, and I've seen it in articles and I've seen pictures of it, all sidewalks now can be solar sidewalks where they light up at night. They light up when people are walking on them. They light up when bicycles are riding on them. And I think that that would be something that I would like to see incorporated. You want to be futuristic, you want to do something that's worthwhile, I think that would be worthwhile. And then the other thing, you have a lot of beautiful trees and things. One of my neighbors just contacted me that she was very upset that, and I live right off 104th Street, so I'm right down the street here, that the county is cutting back on the amount of care that they're going to have for the trees. So now that we've had rain for a few days, all the big stupid palm fronds are all over the place. And there's nobody to pick them up unless I send Martha out to do that, because she has time and she doesn't mind doing it. But I do not do that kind of work. That's not, I'll break a nail or something. So I don't do that. But if you're going to have all these beautiful trees, which I love, you have to have somebody maintain them. You have somebody who, you know, cut the grass. You have to have somebody cut things, pull weeds, fertilize. So, although I think it's beautiful, if you're not going to plan to have employees, which is my issue with everything that we do here in Dade County, is you want to do nice things and then there's no services. The county cuts back on services. So, plant the trees, but you better hire people to maintain them, take care of them, and so forth. And that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I am a nice lady. Who worries about the duckies?
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi there, Jess. I have a question for you. I see that the plan that you're coming up with is kind of general, as compared to another plan that I saw out there on your web, like the Bird Road corridor. where there's actually, you know, a whole bunch of details. There's sections on prohibited uses, and sections like that. Are you guys going to come up with something like that for this?
We haven't gotten the policy development that you saw. That's as far as we've got in terms of technical, recommendations. We've been focused on trying to develop the conceptual type of things. But I know one of the things that was mentioned was the uses, like
like no
the
pawn
car
shops,
car
monument
dealerships.
signs for the malls.
Yeah, signage was another issue. Those are more technical things that we can certainly include in our recommendations. But again, that's but that's a zoning district, and this, we're far from doing a zoning district if that's the ultimate goal here. But those are the types of things that can be implemented through zoning.
And just were the property owners more engaged in that process also? Is that a factor in
For Bird Road?
Yeah. How did the property owners engage? Because part of the problem is how do you undo things that are already done?
Right.
Unless the folks are willing to accept it. So.
Right. Yeah, but here we're trying to plan.
No.
And unless we put them into details.
And that's why I'm saying I think in the Bird Road area, what you had was folks who, the owners there were more willing to
change?
to some of these changes. And, we've tried to reach out to some of these property owners, and we have some out here, but most of the people who own those malls along the way. So it's tough to kind of, unless they play ball, they have their rights, and we can't make them. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean something like
and there's a way.
Lower.
Listen, there's a way to change, to get folks to be. Kendall Drive and 8th Street. So that's, in a way, that's like an express lane right there. So the folks who live out here in the western part of the West End will have that. By removing all those cars from the road, then immediately you have, much better mobility along Kendall Drive. So the strategy is going to incorporate a lot of things. It takes time to get people used to mass transit, but in order to make mass transit successful, you have to have an urban design built into what you're doing. So moving forward, that's what we need to be very, very clear about.
I think the gentleman in the front.
Yeah, the town center, that little plan you guys drew up, has that been presented to the owner of the land?
Yes, we met with them yesterday, or representatives from Howard Hughes, yes.
How did they take
How'd it go?
How did it go?
How did it go?
Well, I mean, they're essentially what they told us is that we think it's great, but we're going to build what the market will support. So if the market supports that, I think they would be happy to build it. So the question is, does the Kendall area, can it support? I mean, the parallel to that is Midtown. Has everybody been to Midtown?
Yeah.
Maybe a smaller scale Midtown would be appropriate there. Now the question is, does the Kendall area support that in terms of the demographics, the incomes, the existing retail as compared to what the potential is for additional retail, and so on. So, they're the experts at figuring out the market and figuring out what is viable. But, they said, we're kind of thinking along the same lines, more mixed use, office space, potential residential space, things like that. What's going to come out in the end of the day, who knows?
Did they give you like any time to start building or?
I'm getting lost, but we had a couple people in the middle here. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Miami-Dade County planning staff and, of course, the commissioner for putting this together. I was a participant of the Felix Varela charrette, and that was really great. My son participated. I thought it was a great event. There's been a lot of transparency. I see the community is very much engaged. And you guys have done great urban planning design work. It's visionary, it looks great. But I am essentially going to echo what a lot of the other residents have already stated. First of all, the bus rapid transit, the elevated bus rapid transit that would essentially create overpasses, the first thing that came to my mind is the proposed MDX plan to create overpasses on US 1, and which a lot of the incorporated and unincorporated areas that would be most directly affected by those US 1 overpasses are strongly, vehemently against it. So what I see here is almost encouraging, because it's the reverse model. Do the elevated overpasses for public transit. But there's aesthetic issues and there's lots of other issues. And I think the underlying kind of approach is flawed because the entire purpose of having bus rapid transit is not to further accommodate more single occupant vehicles on the road. They are to, the intention is to displace those single occupant vehicles and actually have dedicated on the ground lanes. So actually eliminating single use vehicles, like as most of us drive around as one single person in the car, and eliminate that and replace that with buses that can carry up to 60, maybe upwards of 90 people if they're long stretch buses. So actually having a dedicated BRT lane is where it's all about. I see that the commissioner is very progressive, very forward thinking. What I just heard about the whole CSX lines, the railway lines, that is inspiring. That's awesome. I'm very excited about that. But I also see in the renderings here and in your presentation, it's almost with regards to really the two biggest issues, the expansion of the urban development boundary and the MDX plan to expand the 836 into the southwest. These are kind of subtly, if not explicitly, stated as kind of givens. Like the urban development boundary will expand between 2020 and 2030, and the 836, as we see in this rendering, and with all due respect, because I respect you so much as a planner and professionally, but you said it, almost as an afterthought. Oh, I should have remembered that all of these plans are essentially incorporating 836. And I remember a lot of community outrage, or not outrage, but vocal dissent, opposition to any expansion of highways in our community. So I don't think, and I have to repeat Zapata here. He said, we can't commit the mistakes of the past, and I agree. I think the underlying mistake, the number one mistake of this community is the autocentricity, our dependence on single-use or one-person occupant automobiles. And so the expansion of the 836 would just seem to perpetuate that. All of us, kind of a big elephant in the room is that just west of 167 and just south of Kendall, there's a huge multi-family and single-family residential complex being built. It's almost done, a huge neighborhood. All of these people are going to be driving cars to work, and they're all going to be further congesting our roadways, our major arterials like Kendall Drive. By creating more highways, we're just encouraging the whole auto-centric model. That model is what we need to replace. We're in the 21st century. The era of the automobile is over. We need to have real public transportation, real bus rapid transit. And we already have, one thing that I was disappointed with is that we have that great transit corridor in that big undeveloped Kendall Town Square area, in which you guys are very right to propose a garage for, but that existing park and ride adjacent to the church could be connected as a BRT, bus rapid transit network, to that other one, so you can have multiple stations along this route. This is very long-winded, but I just want to say this is great work. I would just implore you guys to not kind of assume that the 836 Southwest expansion and the UDB expansion are given. Many people here have expressed opposition, and we don't want that. I have an 8-year-old son. I don't want him to grow up in a world where he's forced to drive a car, where he's forced to get stuck on a highway. I live that life. We all live that life. We don't want that for our kids. We don't want that for future generations. Let's not repeat the mistakes of the past. Let's move forward. Thank you, guys.
I hear you, and I really wish there was something that I could do to make all that happen. We could propose a lot of ideas and changes and how we should do things, but changing human behavior is a very, very tough. I could pass all the legislation that I could possibly pass, and human behavior still be what it is. And there's also the realities of what we built out here. Part of the problem is, yes, I don't want to commit the mistakes of the past, and I think we took some things to an extreme where now, to address those problems, we need to face the reality. This area will always be very dependent on automobiles, just because of the way we built it. One of the realities that I share with folks is that, the area that lives out here west of the Turnpike, there's 320,000 people. 94% of those people have to commute to work. 94%. We could put in a huge dent in it and we wouldn't even probably feel it. You wouldn't probably see it on the road. So how do we start then being creative? And one of the things that I've told a lot of the property owners and the developers is, if I were to expand the UDB, the only reason I would expand it for is to bring jobs to this area. What would happen if we were able to, in that corner, and that's a conversation we had when they ran through this presentation in my office. I go, what we should probably have in that corner, there should be a commerce park. So that people in the mornings would then drive west to work. So that would create counterflow traffic. And again, by doing that, you increase the mobility. You start to relieve the pressure. And then instead of instead of needing all your lanes on Kendall Drive, then over time, you start to eliminate those lanes and you could create a BRT. Maybe not, a BRT in an express manner. They'd still have to probably stop at some lights and all that stuff, but there would be much greater mobility along those lanes. And just creating different options. Look, I think, what you want to do is the ideal. And to create that, we could create pockets of that. The town center could be that. It could be an urban setting where you live, work, and play there. One of the things we've been talking to, we had a meeting with DOT. So Lennar, when they got permission to build that development they're building along 172nd, one of the things they committed to was reconfigure Kendall Drive, expand Kendall Drive from 162nd to 172nd. And just as a witness, and the folks have been witnesses, we've been fighting with them so that they start to incorporate, so that section of Kendall Drive is very different. One of the things that I've emphasized upon them is I want you to build that stretch of road so that the day that town center gets developed, people could walk from 172nd along Kendall Drive to that property then. So it's little things like that that are going to help over time. But honestly, and I'll be honest with you, no matter how much we get done, we're only going to be putting a dent of the problem, or at least minimizing the impact of the problem. But to think that we could solve the problems without additional construction or additional development, it's not going to happen. Now, the choice we have is what kind of development. And what we need to do, look, I've been fighting from the beginning with the county on, we need to develop an economic development plan. I've had numerous conversations with the Beacon Council, with Jack Osterholz, who's the economic development guy, who's a deputy mayor in charge of economic development. I've talked to businesses. We've got to bring businesses out here. That's the way we resolve our problem. Because even if I'm able to short people's commute, eventually they'll say, there's got to be a better option than me driving my car and driving 5 minutes to work. Well, then during that time, we'll improve our sidewalks. We'll improve the walkways. We'll put some shade on those walkways. We make Kendall Drive more walkable. And then we create creative ideas to remove the cars out of Kendall. The people who have to drive, let's get you out of here as quick as possible so we have greater mobility so that we can have people ride bikes or walk. But it's going to take an awful lot of work. And I'm telling you, I don't want folks to leave here with the idea that somehow we'll kind of be able to transform this area into the ideal. It could be much better, but it's not going to be perfect. And I hear you, and everything we do needs to take us to getting people out of cars. But even if we do all that, people are still going to want to be in their cars, and that's kind of my point. So it's going to be a problem that we're going to have to figure out how to deal with.
Yes, sir. Next.
Yes, how are you? My name is Robert. I used to work in Coral Gables, and I used to
those are completely different things. MDS, if you want to bring a train, I think even if it's traffic, Miami-Dade Transit has to take care of that. That's what they do. They take the traffic, even if it's traffic, but that's the department. MDS is supposed to maintain 5 expressways, and they're charging a money like to the people of Miami-Dade County, and nobody's doing anything about it. It costs me about $400, $500 every month with my company to try to go to do service to my customers. And it's crappy. So if you want to do an expressway here to there, you're gonna kill the people for West Kendall because it's gonna cost I like to go 20 bucks.
No, listen, and those are all valid points. On the DOT thing. So I've spoken with the Secretary of Transportation several times, and he is open to the idea of building his road. Now, as I look at more of the problem, I don't think maybe there's a need to build that expressway. They're going to expand Chrome into 4 lanes. I think if they do that right, I think that should be enough. We might not need the expressway to come all the way out here. The way I see it now, I think you probably you want to bring it into Chrome so that it connects with Chrome. Now, this is what we need to do. If MDX is going to build more roads, then let's be smart about it and build it in a way where we can put in mass transit along those roads. So in a way, we make our dollars much more efficient. And you start to use the toll money. You start to use that toll money for the train.
Perfect. The MDX it was an entity made for the tolls. A lot of people misunderstand. MDX was created to maintain 5 expressways, 5. The ones that we have, not to create new roads, not to create new expressways. That's what the idea of.
Listen, I'm not going to argue. I'm not arguing with any of that. I know what MDX was created for. Look, you're talking about the guy who fought MDX for many years, And nobody in this room was helping me at the time. So let's be clear about who really fought the battles of MDX, and Lawrence can be a witness. Because he remembers that I would sit there and I was talking.
Yeah, you did.
And everybody was like, everybody, all the other legislators and everybody else, even the media wouldn't write about it. They write about it now. So listen, I've been a guy who's fought MDX, but I have to deal with realities. The transit system has no money to pay for anything. So I got to figure out who has the money. Right now, MDX has money. The best thing I can do for the folks I represent is take money from them to do good things for my community. The other option I have is nothing, and that's not an option for me. I didn't run for office and tell you and make a commitment with my constituents that I'm going to run so that I talk a lot and I don't do anything. So I got to find solutions, and I got to deal with the realities. Would I love to not have to pay $1,100 a year that I pay in tolls? I would love to do that, but I have to. Is MDX spending money? And the folks at MDX will tell you that I am constantly fighting with them, saying, you collect the money from the western part of the county, spend it on the western part of the county. But no, what they're doing is what happens around here all the time, which infuriates me, which is what gets me in fights with all my colleagues in the commission. There is a constant here, and it is, let's take the money from the western side of the county and let's spend it on the eastern side. Every time you give $1 to United Way, you do that. You pay taxes to the Children's Trust, you do that. Okay, now I'm not going to let that happen with the tolls, and we've been fighting. Guess who filed the legislation fighting MDX? It was representatives from the West. So look, let's be clear, and I understand that, but the solution is MDX is not going away. I mean, it's not going to go away. They've tried to do it many times. The best thing we can do is get MDX to work for us. So I have to figure out a mass transit solution. Everybody agrees we need to find some sort of mass transit out here. I'm trying to find it. Now, you know what? I don't have necessarily a problem with tolls going up over time because it makes mass transit more viable. See, keep that in mind. If the tolls become incredibly expensive, but the problem that people have now is that the tolls are very high and there's no other option. We have no other option. Okay? I want to make sure people have options in life. So if the tolls go up to $20, but you have a mass transit option, then you don't have to pay the tolls. You have a mass transit, but right now you have no options, and I have to try to give you an option.
Not an option either.
Well, listen.
Sir, that is not an
Listen,
option.
unless you're able to go up to DC and convince them to give us $20-30 billion and then give us money to maintain
There
it.
are people, the way Miami, I was born and raised here, and it was long before you were ever
Can
your parents.
can we finish this, and then we can have a discussion about transit? Because I hate to kind of, but I want folks. Listen, it's a pressing problem. But I don't want folks, look, I don't want you guys to be misled anymore. Okay? I grew up out here. We've been lied to the 36 years I've lived out here. They've been telling you promises all the time. The county, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen renderings of Metrorail coming out here. You know what? Let's pass this park. Remember the park? What was that bond for the parks? Right now I have 160 acres and I don't have a dime how to develop it. Okay? And they got their most support was out here. Okay? So when they passed the penny tax, where do you think they got most of the votes from? Out here. And what have we gotten for it? Nothing. So, look, I got to deal with the real world. I see the world in very painful terms. I wake up and I'm given a series of bad options. So what I'm not going to do is subject my constituents, the folks that I promise to represent well, and give you no options. But but you can't ask me for me to completely ignore the realities of the situation. So I am sitting here struggling. The best thing I can do, I can fight the tolls up to a point, but I know that's going to be a losing battle. And I'm not going to spend a lot of energy on that if I know I'm going to lose. But I can't fight the fights that I can win. And I want to focus on those fights.
Two things.
Listen, don't say no, I can't.
Since I called for the charrette, I'm very happy that we're here, we're doing the charrette. One thing that's going to happen in 10 minutes is the library is going to close.
Oh, shoot.
We are
I have no influence over that either.
So. Building out here, we have no space to have meetings, and if the library's all closed and we have to meet in the middle of the park, that's going to happen.
Okay, listen, we can go outside. I'll tell the guy next door, the Venezuelan guy, to crank up the coffee, and we're good.
Okay.
I solve problems. That's not a problem.
Two, when I used to come to community council meetings here and you were chairing, you always talked about soccer fields. Now I'm talking about a soccer field. Since they don't want to do it downtown, and you said to do it in the West End today on Facebook, that's something else we can incorporate into this to bring out some sports, some activities, some civic thing, whatever, in this area.
The land across from the dark part.
I know.
The land across from the dark part.
Listen, guys, my staff, look, we could tell you about all the things we're working on. The problem is this, I am outgunned. I need you guys to be more vocal, but don't talk to me about it. You're preaching to the choir, not even to him. Talk to my colleagues. I can't talk to my colleagues. You guys go and visit them. I guarantee you, 10 of you show up, say, we're mad as hell. You're not paying attention to our commissioner. Why don't you help my commissioner?
Send
That
us
helps.
the information.
Absolutely. Tell my staff, and I'll get you their cell phone numbers. Just don't tell them I gave it to you. I'll give you their address if you want.
Okay.
Well, go ahead and finish, Jess.
Does anybody, one or two final questions, and then we got to start packing up. Yes,
And guys, we'll have more of these. Just don't think that this is the end of the...
Before we take another question, I just wanted to mention before people start filtering out, we're here to take your comments. We're going to have the presentation available online the next day or two. So if we already have your contact information, I'll send you an email. If you're new, make sure you sign in so we can send you a link to the presentation. We'll have it online. You can continue to review it. If you have additional comments, make sure you let us know. And so you'll be aware of the next meeting when we proceed with the planning process. Okay?
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Quick question, are you going to have the pictures of the drawings that we did also?
Yeah. Exactly as you saw
Because
it.
I saw the numbers, okay, that's it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a couple of questions here. I believe West Kendall is still on the floodplains of Dade County. What is being incorporated or planned for drainage to prevent street flooding, which is an annual problem, especially right beginning with June
Today?
until October? And how close are we to the well fields? How is all this construction going to affect that? And the Biscayne Aquifer. Okay, you've got this beautiful map here with all these millions of units for jobs and residents and so forth. How is that going to affect the aquifer? I understand now, I understand now that saltwater intrusion has already reached 42nd Avenue. What is being done to prevent any more intrusion? Also, I agree that large shade trees are crucial in this climate. Not just for people walking, but for those of us who are stuck in traffic. And shade trees are healthier, much healthier than palm trees. I know I'll get shot for that.
Listen, I need you guys to, about shade trees real quick. The number one killer of shade trees are our sane maintenance guys with the weed whackers. I kid you not. I kid you not. I learned that the hard way. You know, I spent some money on some trees, and then 6 months later, they're dead. And then the guy showed me with a weed whacker with a tree. So if you guys ever see those maintenance people and they're whacking one of those trees, get off them, give them an earful, and then get their name, and then let me know.
And also,
They'll be out of business.
In closing, colorful landscaping along the sidewalks and median strips and so forth, and in addition to the green shrubs and trees that are being considered. And being an amateur astronomer, I am still livid about the uncontrollable outdoor lighting that covers this county. And the sky glow that is visible from the lower Florida Keys all the way to East Naples. And I think West Kendall could present an example of not only solar, but LED and other types of more efficient lighting and safe lighting.
Thank you. Just very quickly, what's shown here on the screen, this is within the wellfield protection area. The uses that go on here would be limited. So, certain uses like things that deal with chemicals, auto repairs, things like that would not be permitted here, because those are the types of uses that, if there's an accident, something goes in the ground, it will get into the well field. So, development here has to be consistent with these standards that we have for the development in the Wellfield area.
But they can't get variances in the community council, which is why you guys need to be paying attention to these community council meetings. Because I can go in there and get a variance. Everybody's at home watching TV. There's a couple community councils. Somebody will go in there and cry how, they need it for their business. And then the next thing you know, there's an oil change place right above the drinking water that you have. Our aquifer's fine. Actually, our aquifer's become very productive. We're doing this whole water and sewer, basically redevelopment. We're retrofitting our entire water and sewer system. We're way below projection. Actually, one of the problems that we're having with water and sewer is that we've become very efficient at water use, which actually has lowered the amount of revenue that water and sewer collects, which makes it more difficult to invest the money that we have to invest. So actually, and water use, we've been incredibly efficient. I mean, the county has won a lot of awards in what it's done. With regards to saltwater intrusion, it's a problem. But again, I think it's a problem that folks are aware of, and we're doing a lot to try to mitigate it. One of the best things we can do is be more efficient about reuse water, and just continue to become more and more effective over what we do with water. You talk about LED. Look, one of the things I've said, one of the things that identifies our community, that identifies the West End, is that we're the community that's closest to the Everglades. You go to my office, there's a lot of green in my office. There's a reason why it's green. I want us to be green. Okay? We're trying to get our LEED certification. Our office will be, by the end of your year, Stephanie, right? Carbon neutral. Okay? How many commissioners could say they have a carbon neutral? Okay? So what you guys are saying is not lost. All the stuff about trees, you can ask Tony Cotarello, and he's going to explain to me why you put palms on 147th. And you can ask him, and you can ask the parks guys. And Michael Hewell is the landscape architect for the parks, and he will tell you. They all know, and I've told them repeatedly, I hate palm trees. Okay, I hate palm trees. I want shade trees. But listen, this is the problem. You talk about more maintenance. The maintenance guys are the ones who screw up our landscaping.
Not only that, if one of those big palm fronds comes down and hits
and it's been a big problem. It's been a big problem. So the cycle of maintenance has been shortened. So what happened is that we were on a cycle, but since they got cut, since we're already halfway through the budget, we have even less money. So it's been a problem. So I have a guy that I pay who has my truck. He drives around, it's got lights and all that stuff. And he's in charge of picking up shopping carts, and we pick up about 25 to 30 shopping carts. So if you see somebody with a shopping cart on Kendall Drive, please tell them that is a road hazard. Okay, if there's a hurricane, those things become missiles. So anyway, so he does that. But what he also does is he's been picking up a lot of those fronds, and it's amazing how quickly that fills up in a truck. You got like 5 of them, and your truck's full already. So we're on it. So you want to close up, and I'll answer your question.
I think we have to run out of here. One last comment, very quick.
One last thing, and I saw this on TV recently. Are you aware that the Miami Airport is going to be expanding because the Miami International Airport is landlocked? So they are now going to use the Miami Airport for private jets, smaller jets, UPS jets. Is that going to make a big difference in?
Okay, so we've been talking about it. So it's the issue doesn't have to do with MIA. The issue is how do we make Miami Airport more of an economic hub? So I've been pushing for it to be for economic purposes to turn that airport into more of a commercial use to reinvigorate the commercial areas. One of the problems that I have is the industrial space around there. They all want to turn that into either more homes or they want to turn it into more shopping centers.
But you have homes there.
We don't. I understand that. I'm not going to bring 747s there. But you could already have private planes. But this is the thing. If we expand that runway just a little bit more, you'd be able to get basically pretty much the bigger planes, which are the same. The difference is not that great, but what it does is it gives you more prestige. So you actually attract the nicer planes that take more fuel. And then that generates revenue, and then that creates more business for that airport. So it's all part of an economic strategy. I'm very sensitive. I will tell you, I'm a little nervous. The airport director starts talking a lot of things that make no sense to me.
You've got schools there, you've got houses. That really does.
But that airport's been there since 1966. So people move near an airport. So people have to be realistic that there will be planes there.
It was supposed to be a small private
It is a small, and that's what it will remain. It'll remain a general aviation airport. You're not going to have commercial flights in there. You're not going to go and get on a JetBlue flight there. Okay, that you don't have to worry about. Now, one idea that I suggested to them is the Chrome detention centers out here on Chrome, but they fly those folks out of MIA. So I go, well, maybe you could fly them out of there. There'd be 1 or 2 flights a week.
Where do they go?
They go to Latin America. Take it back. So, but listen, but this is the thing. This is what I've told the airport. I go, you might do those things, but what are you going to do for us? So they're talking about doing better landscaping. They're talking about doing maybe some commercial areas, talking about pushing back the fence to create a walk path around the entire airport. Well, listen, if you ever want to see a beautiful sunset, go to the western part of that airport and stare west in the afternoon, and you'll fall in love with this place.
They just built a nice hotel, the best.
They built an excellent hotel, by the way. I highly recommend that Best Western.
Yeah, me too.
That's where I saw the actual sunset from. I was in their parking lot and I looked out west, and you could see the sunset. Like, it's gorgeous. So you guys do that, and you'll really, really learn to appreciate this.